available on the Council's YouTube channel, and the meeting is now being recorded and live streamed, and I'll take this adherent for this meeting of the Education Resources Committee of the 5th of March 2024. I see that we have present Councillors Alec Allison, John Anderson, Ross Clark and Councillor Margaret Cowie. Councillor Fagan, we have apologies for Councillor Fagan. Just record those. I see that we've present Councillor Faulkner, looking for Councillor Grant Ferguson, and I see that he's participating remotely. Councillor Frame, and she's participating remotely also. We have present Councillor Fulton. I have an apology from Councillor Gray. We have present Councillors Hamilton, Johnson Dempsey and Keat. Councillors Kerr, Lambie, Lockhart, Logan, Loudon and Mars are also present. I have an apology from Councillor Ian McCallan. Looking for Councillor Mark McGeever. Oh, just walked in. How on cue. Fabulous, thank you. Councillor Razak is present, as is Councillor Scott and Councillor Thompson. I have apologies from Councillor Walker. It's been intimated that Councillor Devlin will be substituting for her but may be late in joining. And we have Councillor Watson also present. In terms of external representation, I have an apology from John Mulligan, looking for Gillian Coulter. Not seeing Gillian Coulter, so I'll record her apologies. Jennifer Gaffney is present. Joan Lennon I have apologies for. Naomi Baxter is present, and just looking to see if Christine Hall is present. Yes, she is present remotely. And with that, Chair, we have officers present at the meeting, and I'll pass back to you for the business of the meeting.
Thanks, Pauline. Is there any declarations of interest? Nope. Can I take the minutes of the previous meeting, pages 5 to 14? I'll approve them as a correct record. And on to the monitor items. Education, item 3, Education Resources Revenue Budget Monitoring 2023 to 24, which is pages 15 to 18, and I'll invite Louise Harvey to speak to that. Thanks, Louise.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. So this is the fourth report to committee for the 23-24 revenue budget for the period 1st of April through to the 28th of December, which is period 10 of our financial year. Paragraph 4 on page 15 outlines a position in relation to the Scottish Attainment Challenge funding. And for PEF, as at the 28th of December, we've spent 7.384 million, with 2.482 million still to spend, and this includes all the known staffing to the end of March. The anticipated 23-24 PEF underspend is 400,000, and this underspend has been used to help to fund the Council's pay award for 23-24. However, this will not be to the detriment of schools, and schools will receive their 23-24 carry forward balance over the life of the PEF programme. In relation to the CEF programme, the Strategic Equity Fund, the spend and commitment to date is 1.391 million, with 82,000 still to spend. Turning to the main financial implications of the report, Education has completed its probable outturn exercise, and this has been reported to the Executive in January 24 as part of the overall Council position. Excuse me. Paragraph 6.1 on page 16, Education is reporting an overspend position of 295,000. There are no proposed transfers to reserves. This is the net effect of underspends in our early years core budget, including the over-recovery of fees, offset by overspends relating to mainstream transport costs and the costs of school placements, which are demand-led. There is also an overspend on teachers' costs due to cover, which is offset by an underspend in the early years staff costs due to vacancies and turnover. The position as at the period 10, 28th of December, the resource position is reporting an overspend of 188,000, and the detailed variances are outlined in Appendix A of the report. In terms of the two areas of financial risk we've highlighted to committee in previous reports, Firstly, the cost of transport. The previous report to committee outlined a significant increase in the spend on transport by SPT for school transport after the contract renewals, and this is now quantified at £4.328 million of overspend this financial year. However, it has been managed within our overall outturn position for the resource, and this has been including the use of some of our reserve fund balances. The second area is our teacher numbers. Following the conclusion of the pupil teacher census 23, teacher numbers have been maintained at last year's levels. The pupil support numbers are not yet available for reporting by the Scottish Government. And in terms of an update, we have had now confirmation that the £2.934 million of grant has been received. In relation to 24-25, the Council has received notification that the allocation of funding for the teachers' numbers for nationally of 145.5 million for 24-25 will be distributed via the specific resource grant, and those grants will be conditional on the Council's agreeing at the offset to maintain teacher numbers, and further information on the conditions of this grant is awaited. The budget variants are proposed as set out at the bottom of Appendix A, and these reflect initial movements to the education budget since we last reported on the 11th of August through to the 28th of December, and cover some of the following main areas: transfers from reserves for teacher costs, school transport and independent schools, transfers from corporate items in relation to utilities and pay award, the creation of budget to reflect the receipt of a general revenue grant for funding for psychologists, the teacher induction scheme and the PEF funding, the realignment of budget in respect of our SEF and our PEF programmes, and also the realignment of budgets to reflect how we deliver a devolved management scheme and the EMA payments. So if I can refer committee back to paragraph 2, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the forecast to the 31st of March of an overspend of £295,000 as detailed in Appendix A of the report is be noted, and that an overspend of £188,000 as at the 28th of December as detailed in Appendix A of the report be noted, and that the proposed budget variants be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Louise. Recommendations are on page 15. Is there any questions? Councillor Loudon.
Hi, thanks very much, Chair, and good morning, everybody. Very brief question on page 16 at 6.1 and 6.2, the cost of transport. It's obviously a hot topic just now. We know it's obviously demand-led service, and we've discussed the reasons for this overspend before. The information from SPT at the last committee being an example of that. But after this, could we be provided with a briefing or a breakdown after committee of how exactly this overspend is shaking out? So how much of it, a bit more information about how much of it is due to increase in pupil numbers and increase in demand, and how much of it is to do with an increase in costs. I think that would be really helpful to see, because it has come up a few times that we've discussed it.
Thanks, Louise.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's no problem. We'll get that information for you. Most of the increase has been around cost in terms of inflationary costs due to driver shortages and contract price increases. From 21-22, our actual costs were 5.9 million, and at 23-24 they're now 10.4 million, and it's all due to the increase in the contract. So have checked that out in advance, and it's not really about the pupil numbers. The level is pretty much the same across the years, but we'll get the specifics to you.
Thanks, Louise. Councillor Allison.
Thanks, Chair. Start with following on from that one. I note one of the environments to pay for the transport is from a teacher's reserve fund, which isn't something that I've heard about before. What is it? What's it for? And how much is in it? PEF, I'm led to believe. I was trying to listen carefully to make sure I didn't ask a question you'd already answered. But I believe it's changing from the school year that's funded to the financial year. So therefore, in the current year, there will be significantly more funding available. Is that the funding you're then... you said you were using £400,000 for something. What happens next year then, when there will be a reduction compared to this financial year of funding? And finally, glad to hear that we're finally getting the money from the Scottish Government regarding teacher numbers. Have they identified yet what numbers they are counting? We took on significant extra teachers to recover from COVID, which was supposed to be a 2-year limited period, I think. Are they being counted or are they not?
Louise?
Just take them in order, hopefully get them right. The transfer from reserves is for teachers to cover the costs of teachers. So there's various reserves that we've had for education, and we've drawn pretty much everything down to cover the costs of teachers. It's not a teacher's reserve necessarily, it's a transfer to cover the costs of teachers, school transport and independent schools. But I'll give you the details of the specific reserves if that's any help.
Please.
In terms of PEF, we are reflecting an underspend and a carry forward balance of 400,000. We won't have a reduction to our PEF grant. We always have PEF funded in the financial year. We are trying to align it much more though in terms of our school spend, because through the guidance we have the ability to spend through the academic year. But next year we will have our standard 8.9 million and schools will spend their 8.9 million first, and should those schools that have had a carry forward be short, we'll look to fund that within the overall balance for schools. So it's not that we're getting any less money, and the government have committed through the funding of the pay award nationally to fund that over the life of the PEF programme, which is got next year and 1 more year. And on teacher numbers, we believe the baseline is going to be 22-23. So our teacher numbers for 22-23 and 22 were pretty much the same. So the baseline doesn't make much difference from us. But your point around, and we've raised it at committee before, we had invested significantly in our teachers as a concern for us, because that teaching support for early level teachers is coming to an end. So we are looking at that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Eileen?
Thanks very much, Chair. I think the suggestion that we should get more information regarding numbers, costs, and the various different things that make up the very huge overspend is actually required. As councillors, I'm assuming we're all party annoyed, upset that we have to look at taking up 3 miles as opposed to 2 miles. The 3 miles is Scottish Government regulations, I'm led to believe, or I do know. So I think the information would be very helpful if every party in this council decides maybe to go to the Scottish Government to make a case to say 3 miles is too much. Why don't you reduce that back to 2 and give us money so that we could implement 2. So I look forward to any reports that you will bring to each education committee. And I think all parties, because no one party has a measure that they're better than anybody else at shouting. And if we put it all together, I would hope that maybe all party led, we could get to the proper authorities in Edinburgh to put our case. And I think it's about time we're actually saying, shouldn't it be 3, bring it back to 2. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. Valid point. Are you?
I'll just make a brief point.
Yep.
Thanks, Chair. Just to echo Councillor Logan's point, we're going through a public consultation on changing transport or bringing it into line with Scottish Government guidance. Is that something that we would have wanted to do? Absolutely not, because of the upheaval of changes to individual circumstances. But I think paragraph 6 outlines it starkly. We've got a 4.38 million overspend. Irrespective of how that comes, that's the financial reality that we're in, and that's the basis on which decisions have to be taken to set a legally balanced budget. Now, I welcome the officers and the work they did meeting parents and guardians over the last few months about the school transport changes to answer concerns and questions, but also there are some members maybe not been proactively supporting this process, so thanks to the officers, but this is the reality we're in, and this is the reality that we need to be speaking to our constituents and our parents are concerns about. Parents rightfully have concerns, but this is the reality. There's no ifs or buts, that's the crux of it. I just wanted to make that point in the back of Councillor Logan's point. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks. Councillor Lydon.
Hi, thanks very much, Chair. Just for a wee bit of clarity on that, because I think clarity is important. When we're talking about the 2 miles and 3 miles, it's actually a piece of UK legislation. It's the Education Act 1980, where those parameters are set. So in order for, I've been asked this question by a constituent, so I've done a bit of research on it. It would be an extremely slow-moving ship to turn around for the Scottish Government to be able to change that. They don't have the power to change that legislation at the moment. They could put in recommendations about looking at the distance, but actually in terms of statute and the legislation is actually sitting with the UK Parliament at the moment. So just to make that point, if anyone is going to be lobbying, as has been suggested. Thanks.
Okay, so my screen's lighting up. I'm keen not to get into an argument about school transport in this committee. It will come to a committee in time to come. But if you've got points, okay. Carol, do you want back? You want in? Sorry, there you go.
Thank you. Just to make a kind of more general comment about the budget and going forward, that two of our main pressures financially are around transport costs and also in terms of out-of-authority placements. And as Louise said as part of a report, both of these are demand-led and we have to pay the costs of what we're asked to pay. And both of these budget lines are of concern in terms of having enough funding to pay for the demand. But going back to Louise's observation, we will, I think, to be open and transparent, provide a bit more detail about those transport costs, but it is largely just due to inflationary pressures and the cost of providing the transport, as opposed to, us providing more transport for more children. So that's just more a kind of general observation and an expression of the concern going forward around these two particular budget lines.
Thanks, Carol. If there's no other questions or comments, the recommendations are on page 15. I'll ask the committee to agree the report.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Going on to agenda item number 4, which is Education Resources Capital Budget Monitoring 2023-24, which is pages 19 to 22. And I'll invite Lorraine to speak to that. Thanks, Lorraine.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. Agenda item 4 then on page 19 is a standard capital budget monitoring report, and it's the 4th for the current financial year and takes us to the end of December. Section 3 gives the background to the report and advises that the revised budget for education resources for the current year is 14.268 million, and that includes an amendment approved at the January 2024 Executive Committee, the details of which are noted in Appendix A of your papers, and that's on page 22. In terms of the bulk of the financial implications, they are in Section 5. Section 5.1 notes the total programme for the year is the 14.268, and in Section 5.2 we're noting the outturn for the current year, which is currently sitting about 14.3 million, so an outturn on budget for the current year. Section 5.3 provides the period 10 position. So as at the end of December, we had anticipated spend of 9.977 million, and we actually spent 9.810. So we were behind programme at that point by about £170,000. That's reflecting timing issues only, most notably in terms of the new Wooddean Early Learning Centre, which is still scheduled to hand over in April 2024, and also the First Steps Community Nursery Extension and adaptations in Hamilton, and that is scheduled to hand over in June 2024. These underspends have been offset by adaptation works at Uddingston Grammar School, where the funding requirement for this project had originally been phased into the coming financial year. In terms of then the recommendations, if I can ask committee to approve that the Education Resources Capital Programme of 14.268 and expenditure to the end of December of 9.810 be noted, and also that the projected outturn of 14.3 million be noted. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorraine. The recommendations are on page 19. Is there any questions? Councillor Loudon.
Thanks, Chair. Just a brief question about 5.4 on page 20, and it's talking about an underspend that's being offset by adaptation at Uddingston Grammar. The requirement there had originally been anticipated for 24-25, and it's been moved on a year. We've had a bit of reassurance about this particular project before, that the school were being kept updated. Since it's been presumably moved into 25-26, is this pupil role related, as in the adaptations aren't going to be needed this year as anticipated, or are other solutions possible? And it would be good to get a bit of reassurance that that sort of line of communication is still open with the school about it, which I'm sure it is. Thanks.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Sorry, Councillor, it's probably the other way around. It's been accelerated into 23-24, sorry. And really, I think from an operational perspective, they took advantage of the fact that we're in the school already. So we had a phased programme of works over years, but we brought it forward to maximise the kind of value for money and the operational activities that were taking place. Does that help?
Peter.
Not having a good microphone day. Thanks, Chair. So thanks for that clarity. I'm getting confused with underspend versus offset here. So if that's been moved forward a year, was that to do with just essentially because it was convenient, because the work was there, so it's been advantageous to the school to get that done at this time? And not because of any other factor, like there has been a sort of higher growth than anticipated. There's not been any other sort of external factors that's accelerated that, if that makes sense.
No, I think you're exactly right. It was taking advantage of the fact that we're in the school at that point already.
Great, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorraine. Councillor Logan.
I think, Chair, thanks very much, that we always hear bad news. I think that's good news, and I think that's a good officers looking at what should happen and actually doing what should happen with a minimum of fuss. So thanks very much, and I think it's nice if we get a wee good news story, so that's a good news story. Thank you.
Agreed, Eileen. Thank you very much. If there's no other questions, can I ask the committee to agree the report?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. On to agenda item 5, which is Education Resources Workforce Monitoring, October to December 2023, which is pages 23 to 30. And can I ask Eileen to take this report? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. So yes, this is the standard report for education resources containing employment information for the period October to December 2023. So section 4.1 outlines attendance statistics for committee, and the details are in Appendix 1. The absence rate for the resource for December is 6.3%, and that's compared to a council-wide figure of 6.6%. And this is increased by 0.7 compared to the previous month, and compared to last year the figure has decreased by 0.5%. So those figures translate into a projected annual average for the resource of 4.4% compared to a council-wide figure of 5.3%. Members will be aware that resource managers continue to follow the maximising attendance procedures and, working with their personnel colleagues, ensure that all the supports are in place to enable employees to return to work and that appropriate actions are taken. Section 4.2 to 4.5, the details are in Appendix 2, and the main points are that during the period there was 530 occupational health referrals, there was 4 disciplinary hearings, no grievances or dignity at work issues were raised, there was 438 accidents or incidents recorded during the period, and there was 47 leavers that were eligible for an exit interview, and 38% of them completed exit interviews. In terms of posts that became vacant during the period, the details are in Appendix 2A, and 79 posts became vacant, and of them managers have indicated that 77 of the posts will be filled, and 2 posts have been held pending a review of service. And if I can refer committee back to section 2.0 and ask that the workforce monitoring information for education resources covering the period October to December 2023 be noted. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. The recommendations are on page 23. No one has indicated any questions, so I will ask the committee to agree the report.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. On to the items for decision. Agenda item number 6, which is cost of the school day guidance for schools and early years establishments, which is pages 31 to tape 74, I'm getting it wrong way round, and invite Jacqueline to get that. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to talk with you this morning about our new Cost of the School Day guidance for schools and early learning centres. This is a piece of work that we're very proud of, as it highlights and supports South Lanarkshire's commitment to supporting our children, young people and their families, particularly those most impacted by poverty. The purpose of this report is to provide Education Resources Committee with an update on the work of Education Resources to support Cost of the School Day across South Lanarkshire schools and early years establishments, and the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the work undertaken by Education Resources on the Cost of the School Day be noted, and the proposals contained in South Lanarkshire Council's Cost of the School Day guidance for schools and early years establishments is approved. Section 4 of the report highlights some of the work previously undertaken and the position to date, and I would like to highlight the information in paragraph 4.8 to you, which focuses on the costs associated with some educational excursions in our schools. This is an area that we have given great consideration to, and our proposed guidance to support a more equitable approach to educational excursions can be found on page 7 of the guidance or page 44 in your pack. Section 5 covers the more recent work of Education Resources, which has resulted in our draft guidance that forms Appendix 1 of the paper you have today. And I would refer you to paragraph 5.2, which outlines the 10 proposals we have put together for our establishments. Each of these proposals features in the guidance with advice on best practice, and these form the core of the document and endorse our commitment to reducing the cost of the school day in South Lanarkshire. The guidance offers schools and early years centres a comprehensive overview of how they can support Cost of the School Day work in their establishment, alongside examples of existing good practice as outlined in paragraph 5.4. And section 6 refers to the Cost of the School Day as one of our stretch aims as part of the Scottish Attainment Challenge. We are required to set stretch aims in support of our Strategic Equity Fund work and have had Cost of the School Day in our plan for the last 2 years as one of our Core Plus measures. All of our schools already have a Cost of the School Day position statement in place, but we want to move all schools to a stronger position now, where the position statement becomes a Cost of the School Day policy. And our early years establishments are at an earlier place in their work, and they will be supported to move straight to a policy position. Finally, section 7 outlines our planned outcomes and we want our establishments to commit to in terms of their work to support Cost of the School Day, and we look forward to sharing these with our establishments at our Cost of the School Day conference on the 25th of March. As outlined in section 10, there are no direct financial implications for South Lanarkshire. However, there are potential implications at school level as we ask schools to commit to reducing the cost of the school day for their families. This guidance puts South Lanarkshire in a very strong position, and we are confident that our schools and early year centres will continue to make positive progress in support of reducing the cost of school day for their children, young people and families. I would therefore refer committee back to section 2 of the report and ask for your approval on the proposals contained within the guidance. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Before I open it up to questions, this is just an absolutely brilliant piece of work, and thank you so much to everybody who's pulled it together. It's reading through it, it's all things that should be getting done, but having it in the one document is brilliant, and it brings clarity and it brings it into show the importance that it does have, and it shows that South Lanarkshire is leading the way in things like this. So I'm particularly pleased about the guidance alongside the school trips, because whereas we shouldn't be stopping people or kids experiencing school trips, it's just not affordable for a lot of people, especially the cost that it costs these days. So it's really good to have some guidance written down on that and it being in black and white. So it's absolutely fabulous, and I'm really looking forward to the conference at the end of March. It should be really good. But I'll open it up to questions, and I'm just going to bring Gavin in.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. And just to echo Lindsay's words, a very welcome piece of work, particularly the current context that we're in. It's a pertinent piece of work, more than probably ever in the last few years. Just on free school meals, which rightly makes an appearance throughout the report, where are we in terms of a council perspective, in terms of the preparatory work being done for free school meals? Members will probably be aware, and officers, that headlines were made this week regarding a black hole in the Scottish Government's pledge to deliver universal free school meals, which was a flagship policy going into that election, rightly so. But from a council perspective, have we done the work in terms of we're ready to roll it out, this is what it will take, and what's the dialogue we've had with the Scottish Government in terms of a timeline for delivery? Thank you.
Thanks. Lynn?
Thank you. Just, I suppose, from our point of view as officers, we've been asked to provide information a number of times to the Scottish Government as regards what it might be in terms of revenue costs and capital costs to roll this out. So the current position is that P6 and P7, there's still a commitment to do it, but it will be based on families who are in receipt of a child support payment. And discussions are still ongoing at this moment in time with COSLA, I understand, and with the Scottish Government. So we're waiting to hear what comes from that.
Thank you.
So just for clarity, Lynn, there's absolutely no timelines, no timescales ready for when we're likely to see this in authority?
Is there? Louise maybe knows more.
Sorry. Yeah, the first stage has been agreed from February 25 for children who have eligibility through the Scottish Child Payment, and because of potential capital works that are needed, we've got the commitment to roll that out through to the following August.
Thank you very much.
So we're on track to do that. We've just had notification of our capital grant, and there's revenue funding this year, financial year 24-25 coming as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay. Oh, sorry. Fighting over the mouse. Councillor Loudon.
Thanks very much, Chair. Excuse me. First of all, thanks for that update. It's good to hear we're on track for the delivery of free school meals, which was a pledge by the end of the parliamentary term. Capital funding is really complicated. I was on the Children and Young Persons board at COSLA when this was first discussed. So we were collecting views from a number of local authorities across the country, obviously, and the complicating factors about how many children are you going to be able to fit in a lunch hall at any time and what space is available. It's very complicated, so, and I do appreciate all the work that's gone into this so far, and I look forward to hearing further updates as that comes through. But also echo the Chair's comments about the work that's been done in this report here. Work that, as the Chair said, should be being done. And I know for a number of years, a lot of the content in here is things that schools have been doing. Really, really good practice out there, and it's just about joining those ideas up and having them down in something that we can reference. And I'd welcome the proposals that are on page 33 to that. My question is around this, and it was to do with the uniform guidelines, which I know we've got. It's a bit further down in the report. It's page 42 and 43. And it says that all South Lanarkshire schools will promote the use of affordable, inclusive and flexible uniforms for children and young people. I think these guidelines are very good and they're very sensible. Did notice, though, there's no mention of neurodiversity in here. Which can be a huge issue for some children and young people. It can be to do with sensory issues which they can experience with certain types of clothing or certain types of materials, and if uniform guidelines are too restrictive or prescriptive, then that can cause real issues. Scottish Autism, for example, a few years ago asked for views on this when it was being discussed at the Scottish Parliament, and they've produced guidelines, sort of best practice guidelines as well. Again, like everything else, I know there will be pockets of best practice around this in schools. I know that schools will be supporting individual pupils. It's just about making sure it's highlighted further. So could this be looked into and discussed in more detail and raised when we've got this conference and then the guidelines are being rolled out to schools? Thanks.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention, and absolutely, as you're saying, it's about taking account of individual needs, and more than happy to take that forward in terms of the conference, and we can obviously add a bit more detail about best practice round about that. No problem. Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks. Mo.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to welcome the report. I think it is what a lot of PTAs are doing in our schools, and it's good to see that this is going across. My question's on 5.2, it's page 33 and 42 and 43, school uniforms again. With the pupils going from 2 miles to 3 miles, will we be offering them reflective bands? Because in summer they'll be fine, because in the early mornings and when they finish school it won't be dark. but I've noticed that a lot of the uniforms now, there's no reflective bands like they used to have in the old days, and that way it was easier for cars to notice the children, especially when they're crossing the road or they're in a poorly lit area, because we've got LED street lighting now as well. That does kind of cut back on the amount of light that's on the pavements and the roads. So I think it might be worth investigating to see if we can do some sort of a campaign and to try and get school uniforms to have more reflective strips on them for safety. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Razak. I'm sure that will be taken on board if the proposals to school transport is taken forward. I will ask if there's any other questions. Thank you very much. I don't think there is. Oh, sorry, Alan.
Chair, it's just on page 31, 3.3, about 19.7% live in areas of multiple deprivation and 21% untitled. Are we doing extra support in the areas of deprivation? The reason I'm asking that, last week in that very row of tables, we had a school teacher from St Ninian's Primary in Hill House, and her figures on the multiple deprivation and the free school meals were double the figures there. So we're giving extra support to schools like that and areas of multiple deprivation.
Carol.
There's no doubt that those figures are averages, and there's some schools that face greater challenges than others. The main source of support is through the PEF funding, because the formula that is used is for children who have got free school meals. So those schools that are in particular areas of deprivation will get significantly extra funding, and they are tasked with using that funding to close the poverty-related attainment gap, and also to provide particular supports for children and families in need. We acknowledge that we have a wide, diverse range of schools, and they do have different needs. And I know that our schools are very grateful for the money that is provided to them based on that particular formula.
Thanks. More you wanting back in?
Yes, Chair. It's just a very quick one. It's just to say that the strips, the reflective strips, aren't just for whether 2 to 3 miles. It's just for winter itself as well, because like I said, it's dark in the morning when the kids go to school, and it's dark at night in winter when the hours are short. So it would still be valid for even if we didn't go from 2 to 3 miles.
Thanks, Mo. I will ask the committee to agree the report if there's no further questions.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Heading on to items for noting, agenda item number 7, which is Education Digital Futures, ICT Supply and Support from October 2025, which is pages 75 to 86, and I'll ask Stuart to speak to this report. Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on ICT supply and support following the end of the current ICT managed service contract with RM Education, and that project is known as the Education Digital Futures Project. Section 3 on page 75 and 76 of the pack sets out the background and the current position, noting that the Council's digital provision for schools has been made through a managed service contract with RM, an education company with a specialism in digital technologies, for the past 11 years, although they've also provided a range of some services to the Council for some years before that. The current contract comes to an end in September 2025, and we're working now to have something in place for the period once that contract concludes. And we note that the current contract has performed well, and as noted in para 3.3, RM have proved to be a performant and indeed a responsive supplier. A project board has been established to consider our future digital provision from October 2025 to allow time for the procurement activity and also for any transition arrangements, particularly if we have a change of provider. I do recognise that the timing of this activity could not really be worse given the existing financial pressures that the Council's under, and indeed the impact of high inflation these past years. In considering the way forward, an options appraisal was undertaken, looking at a range of delivery models, a range of options to consider following consultation with our stakeholders, and 3.7 sets out the position that the Council will proceed now with the procurement of a managed service for the provision of digital services from October 2025, that the contract will be for an initial period of 7 years, that the core revenue budget provided will be around the same as was provided for the current contract extension period. However, the capital funding element of that is subject to capital budget approvals and may reduce, and indeed it has reduced a wee bit given overall council grant levels. Further to that, additional one-off funding that was available and was provided for the current extension period will not be replaced, and therefore the overall contract value will therefore need to be reduced. And given those financial pressures, we are looking at an alternative procurement method which will be employed that will allow for negotiation with applicants, acknowledging that it's unlikely that the new contract will be able to match the provisions of what we have currently. Paras 3.8 to 3.10 note some further risks. Firstly, the most significant risk that we may fail to secure a bid to meet the service requirements for the available budget, and or that we'll have insufficient time to allow for transition. So to mitigate against the financial issue, we are looking at a slightly different procurement method which allows for some negotiation with bidders, but we do recognise that while it's a prudent measure, given the financial constraints, it will take a wee bit longer. Section 4 at the bottom of pages 76 and onto page 77 of the pack sets out the changing context and I guess sets out the increasing importance of the digital landscape in education as it has changed in all aspects of our lives. 12 years ago we had an emerging technological landscape. Today it is very much an integral part of learning and teaching, an integral part of the communications we have with our families and colleagues, accessibility, and increasingly it's a required element of courses and programmes. We're seeing digital assessment become more prevalent and it is likely to feature more heavily in the next generation of qualifications. And Para 4.7 notes that digital technologies is a helpful element in the provision of support for the increasing number of children with additional support needs. This section also notes that our approach to digital is recognised, has been recognised in inspection reports, in national awards, and in good practice recognition as well, and some examples of those are shown in Appendix 1 on pages 81 to 83. Section 5 on page 77 to 78 of the pack sets out the provisions of the existing contract, which brings together in a single efficient, effective practice everything that we need to operate. That starts with the telecoms contracts, the network infrastructure, the devices we have in the system, the licenses and licensing processes, the operating environment, right the way through the storage, the security and the maintenance of our devices. And we do have around 25,000 devices on our network and over 50,000 users. One of the challenges in education is that we have multiple users using a single device over a period of time. One of the major benefits of the contract is that when something does go wrong with digital technologies, I'm sure we've all experienced that, rather than having to wrangle with multiple providers over where the issue lies, we simply have one number to call, and that's proved to be a very effective operating model. Section 6 sets out the governance arrangements, and Appendix 3 on page 85 shows the extent of the work with the number of people involved in taking this forward. And note too that a separate scrutiny board is in place to ensure that all procurement, financial and legal requirements are met. Section 7 shows the available budget and where it comes from, noting that the capital contribution is not guaranteed, and as it stands we will have 4.388 million per year compared to 5.4 million per year in the current contract. Section 8 does recognise the significant input of colleagues from across council resources in relation to this activity. Chair, I refer members back to Section 2 on page 75 and ask that the committee notes that digital learning and inclusion is a priority for our schools and services to deliver the curriculum, to develop young people's skills and to improve outcomes for learners. And ask that it's noted that the Council's commitment to provide schools and services with a managed service model and the benefits which have accrued from this investment by the Council, as highlighted in paragraphs 4 and 5, are noted. That the steps being taken to proceed with the procurement of a managed service for the provision of digital services and ICT supply for schools and services from October 2025, following the end of the current managed service contract with RM on 30th September 2025 be noted. And finally, that the risk factors in paras 3.8 and the mitigations in para 3.9, along with the budget that's been set and the potential implications for the service and for the procurement process are noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Stuart. The recommendations are on page 75. I'll ask Councillor Lambie to ask his question.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Everyone knows that the ICT is really important. You know, a child can't do their homework on mum and dad's phone. They can't study if they can't get onto the internet. So these tools are no longer luxuries. They're the basic building blocks of a good education. Now, those aren't actually my words. They are the words of John Swinney, the then Education Secretary, on the day that he promised a free laptop or tablet for every school pupil in South Lanarkshire, which would belong to them, and it would be upgraded throughout their life at school, and it would have free internet and free technical support. Now we're in year 3 of the 5-year parliamentary term, so I'm keen to hear if we've been contacted by the Scottish Government to tell us how they're going to roll out and deliver these devices. The reason why it's important is because we obviously need to plan as a local authority to either be waiting for them coming or to plan that they're not coming, especially for parent councils, which spend a lot of their time fundraising for ICT. So I guess my question is, have we heard anything? And if not, can we write to the Scottish Government and ask them? Thanks.
Thanks, Ross. Stuart? Oh, thanks.
As yet, we've had no contact or information about the funding for individual devices.
Okay, thanks. Can we write to them and ask about it, Carol?
If that is the view of committee, yes, we can certainly we can write on behalf of Education Resources Committee.
Yep. Okay.
Remove that to do that?
Yeah, it doesn't need it.
No.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
If there's no further questions on that, then I'll ask the committee to agree to note the report.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Heading on to agenda item number 8, which is equity strategy and equity funding, pages 87 to 176. And I'll ask Jacqueline to take that. Thanks, Jacqueline. Don't pin her.
Okay. Okay.
We're having a fight over the IT.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report, the second one for myself today, is to provide an update to Committee on South Lanarkshire's Council Strategic Equity Fund, or SEF plan, for 22-23, and an overview on South Lanarkshire Council Strategic Equity Fund plan for 2023-24, and a more general update around work designed to close the poverty-related attainment gap in South Lanarkshire. So paragraph 3.6 refers you to our Year 2 Strategic Equity Fund plan, which is Appendix 1 in your pack, which I believe starts on page 93. And the plan gives a comprehensive overview of the work streams and impact of the work of Year 1 of our Strategic Equity Fund plan, as well as our plans for Year 2. Section 4 gives you an overview of the funding models available to us as part of the Scottish Attainment Challenge, and para 5.2 then gives a detailed breakdown of the 4-year allocations of SEF monies for South Lanarkshire Council. Section 8 references the progress to date with our core measures as outlined in paragraph 9.2. The core measures are set nationally, with each local authority then setting their own stretch aims to support progress. As referenced in para 8.1, we have overtaken our stretch aims for 2022-23 in both literacy and numeracy across primaries 1, 4 and 7, and our gap continues to close. The work of the Strategic Equity Fund has been a contributing factor to this result. Further data to support our senior phase core measures will be made available at a later date, as these have just recently been published at the beginning of this month. Our new stretch aims in relation to the core measures and core plus measures outlined in paragraph 9.2 can be found on pages 10 to 15 of Appendix 1, or that's pages 102 to 107 in your pack, and we are now required to set these for a 3-year period to support year-on-year progress. We will continue to report on all measures through our own governance structure, which is set out in section 10 with more detail, as well as the reporting structure outlined by Scottish Government with the help of our attainment advisor. Section 11 explains how school pupil equity funding is allocated, as well as processes for planning and reporting, and schools will continue to have full ownership of these monies. Section 12 links to the earlier paper presented on cost of the school day and the work outlined on supporting schools to be poverty aware, as well as the publication of our new cost of the school day guidance. A number of temporary posts are supported and funded by the Strategic Equity Fund monies across the central team to support and deliver on the outcomes and measures described within the plan and to ensure we deliver on our stretch aims. Chair, I'd like to refer you back to section 2 of the report and ask committee to approve the recommendations about the update on committee to South Lanarkshire Council's Strategic Equity Fund plan and an overview of South Lanarkshire Council's strategic plan for 2023-24. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacqueline. The recommendations are on page 87. I'll ask Bert to make his point.
Very much, Chair. Just I welcome the report, especially the bit about numeracy and literature. So important. I would like to see, no matter who does it politically, one day that money, a willingness and experts will be involved, that every pupil at Leith School will be competent in these subjects. It's so important, and it's good to see we seem to go in the right direction. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Bert. That's the aim. If there is no other questions, then I will ask the committee to agree the report.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 9 is a framework for developing an anti-racist and decolonised curriculum, pages 177 to 196, and I'll ask Stuart to come in on this.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on Education Resources' commitment to anti-racism in education and on the new framework for developing an anti-racist and decolonised curriculum resource, which was launched to our schools on the 18th of January. Section 3 of the paper, on pages 177 to 179, sets out the place of this work in the national context. Rights and equalities is quite rightly one of the 4 key drivers within Education Scotland's inclusion, wellbeing and equalities professional learning framework. It sits within the Getting It Right for Every Child agenda and is covered by the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. And as such, this is a shared responsibility of all practitioners at all levels. In the local context, inclusion and equality is a key priority for education resources, and para 3.5 at the bottom of page 178 notes that education capitalised on the sector-leading work undertaken at Strathaven Academy as the basis of creating guidance for all our schools. The remainder of section 3 sets out the government commitment, the legal requirements and the GTCS expectation in respect of this area of work. Section 4 on page 179 notes the research basis for the work, and Section 5 sets out the support that's now in place for establishments. The framework document was launched in December. There's a copy in the pack. I have a glossy copy here, which I believe will be made available to you all, which I would commend as a very accessible document and a very straightforward and very helpful one too. We also provided a range of learning for professional learning for staff. Resources have been curated and made available through our own staff learning centre, and schools are encouraged to set up their own pupil equality groups as well. And paras 5.9 and 5.10 provide an illustration of good practice from Hamilton Grammar School. 5.11 notes the steps taken in relation to recording and monitoring of incidents that take place, particularly around bullying, enabling appropriate tracking and support to be put into place for that as well. Section 6 notes the ongoing support for schools from the Inclusive Education Services and the Curriculum and Quality Improvement Service, and the anticipated national anti-bullying guidance that is coming, and the intent that we therefore continue cross-service work, which has been referred to as windows and mirrors. That's a combination of enabling young people to become more aware of the lives, cultures of others, and also to see themselves and their own cultures reflected, represented in the curriculum in a positive way. Chair, committee is invited to approve the recommendations that the new framework for developing an anti-racist and decolonised curriculum resource launched to schools in January, which is shown in Appendix 1 of the report, be noted, and that the framework for developing an anti-racist and decolonised curriculum is recognised as a further commitment by Education Resources in taking forward anti-racist education across our schools and services in South Lanarkshire, and that this be noted.
Thanks,
Thank
Stuart. thank you very much for all the work that's been done around this. It's a great document, and Gavin and I had the pleasure of attending Straven Academy last week to have a chat to Wahida and the team about what they've been doing, and some of the young people who have been reading Planet Omar between primary 7 and coming up to S1, so they can have a discussion around the book and stuff like that, and it was absolutely brilliant. The young people were great, and they liked it even better that they got a cake at it. So I'm pretty sure they enjoyed talking to us as well. But it is really a really good piece of work, and it just shows the commitment that the Education Department have got to equalities. And we had the Thai paper last time, we've got this time, and I look forward to seeing what we're going to have in the future to build up into the bigger picture of our commitment towards making the world a better place for the kids that learn in South Lanarkshire. I've got a number of questions, so if anybody else wants in, if you'd indicate now, and I'll ask Mo to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I say that I'm really pleased to see the work that's being done by education on this. Three comments really. The first one would be that this is more welcome because of the recent upsurge in social media posts that's increasing in Islamophobia and also anti-Semitism, and I think it's not being helped when our MPs in Westminster are making blatant Islamophobic and anti-Semitic comments as well, which isn't acceptable either. Also, there's a lot of social traffic that's increased against the LGBT community as well, and that's due to a couple of reasons. And I think the more education, the more work that's being done, the better, especially with our schools. And so I'm really pleased with the work with that. Also, 3-10, page 179. One of the recommendations is that the minority BME teachers be increased. They are currently at 1.8% to a target of 4%, which would be 12 BME teachers by 2030. Well, I've raised this several times about the workforce council-wide, the fact that the success for BME is way below what the average of the percentage of the population is, and I'm pleased to see that that's been pointed out and that's been looked at. But at the same time, I'm hoping to make sure that this isn't a positive discrimination, which I don't agree with either, because I think it should be on merit, and it shouldn't be just because of your aesthetics, if you're BME or not, because I couldn't pronounce the other one there. And so I do welcome this, and I do thank the officers for the work they're doing.
Thanks, Mo. Very valid points raised, and I think there will be work done on that going forward. I'm sure, and Stuart's nodding. So I'm aware that we're now at 11 o'clock, so I know that we've got a couple more people wanting in, but I'm going to take the 5-minute break just now, and we'll come back to it if that's okay with people. All right, thank you. Can we reconvene, please? Perfect, thank you very much. So we are obviously on agenda item number 9, and I'll take a question from Katie.
Hi, thanks very much. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I would like to echo previous comments about really pleased to see a commitment to this being taken forward, and that the news of developing an action plan in response to the new national anti-bullying guidelines, when we get that as well, with a more robust focus on racism and recording racist incidents, is really welcome as well. I've got a couple of questions on this, so just, yep, okay. So on page 7 here in the actual document we've got, this really important part about we'll learn about and investigate past and present events in a way that amplifies underrepresented perspectives and stories. And on the table we've got in page 8, there's a mention of Glasgow as well as an example in the document where we're talking about principles and success criteria. But the main focus seems to be we will understand and inquire into Scotland's role in historical world events. And I guess my question is about space for more local stories. So to give you an example, I know that there's been work in Glasgow City Council, for example, to make that link. Thinking about our locality, we've got Cathkin House near Rutherglen, which was built for a family who had what's euphemistically termed extensive sugar interests in Jamaica. They enslaved over 400 people. But they also had a cousin, Dr. Ralph Wardlaw, who was actually one of Scotland's leading anti-slavery campaigners, and he was also connected to David Livingstone, which is that brings in the Blantyre connection. All, as I say, based on a piece of work from Glasgow Libraries, and obviously there's a point to be made there about the value of libraries, librarians and school librarians, but I'm digressing. It's obviously a really interesting story, and there's actually tangible connections between some of these people and street names in the area as well, and the locality. So my question around that is there going to be that space, or are there going to be sort of opportunities and support to develop these local stories about colonialism as well as national stories, and when there's future discussion and a refresh, can that be brought to the fore? My second question, if you want that just now as well, was there's an understandable focus on anti-racism through these guidelines. I just wondered what provision there is within the framework for celebrating multiculturalism and diversity in our communities as well, to provide positive role models for young people, particularly as well for BAME children and young people who are currently in our education system. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll bring in Stuart. A lot of these conversations we had at Stephen, so thank you for asking the question and allowing us to highlight it.
Yeah, thanks very much, and I welcome the comments and the observations. And yes, we provide a structure and guidelines, but we're encouraging individual schools and establishments and individual teachers indeed to build their lessons and the programmes, and being mindful of those principles. But you're right, as part of that local context, understanding our own stories is a really important part of that. And I think, as you've rightly pointed out, we've got a number of stories to tell to take that forward. And I would agree too that this part of the framework is looking at, I suppose, some of the unintended consequences of our existing curriculum and practices over a period of time, and being able to say, let's draw back and make sure that as we progress, that we are mindful of that notion of the windows and mirrors, and that idea of representation is rightly there. And that's something we want to do. But I think our schools are really strong currently in terms of celebrating a diverse range of cultures, religions and festivals, and that's something that we welcome and we will continue to encourage. Thanks.
Thanks, Stuart. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to reiterate the comments about welcoming this report and the importance of this type of work, including Councillor Razak's comments about tackling Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. I've actually got a similar question on 3.10 on page 179. This is very much useful information around teachers from BME backgrounds. Do we know our current percentage or numbers on this? It would be useful to know how big a jump 12 each year would be.
Okay, so Carol?
That's a really good question, and we can get that information. I don't have it to hand, but I know that Eileen would be able to provide that. I know we have a number of teachers and head teachers within South Lanarkshire, but you're absolutely right. We need to continue to promote and encourage a full representation of society. It may just be worth saying that, you know, we very much set this in the context of celebrating diversity and equality. And as the chair said, you know, following on from, I know, the very welcome LGBTI paper that was brought to the previous committee. So our intention is to continue with this work, and also to ask all our schools to reflect their local circumstances and journeys, and to reflect an equalities priority next year within their own school improvement plans. And as Councillor Loudon pointed out, this is a start. This is not an end point. And I think the idea of perhaps working up some of those local stories that can be more widely shared is something that we would welcome and we would be wanting to take forward. So thanks.
Thanks very much. Gavin.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. I just wanted to echo your words from our visit to Stephen Academy, and to touch on a point that Carol made. Their work and their practice around anti-racism and decolonising curriculum, that was an outcome of the context and some of the issues that they were facing daily. So I think when we go back a few months, we were talking about the LGBTQI plus motion, there was an urgency from some members to get it through and get the work, rightly so, but I know educations were willing, they had the willingness to look at this as a comprehensive piece of equalities work, and I think that's the approach that we should be advocating within the authority, giving the schools, equipping our schools with the information, the resources, and how to deal with their own issues within their own circumstances. And on Councillor Loudon's point, Stephen Academy, in particular their social studies, agenda areas, the curriculum, that's where they were finding scope to discuss not only Glasgow but the names of streets and stuff. Again, I think all too often when we speak about discrimination and oppression, you think about other people, other places, something that isn't pertinent to us, and making that local I think is a very, very, very valid point in making it first hand. Thank you.
Thanks very much. If there's no other questions, I'll ask the committee to agree the report.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 10, which is the Scottish Youth Parliament Elections 2023, which is pages 197 to 206, and I'll ask Anne to take this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the outcome of the South Lanarkshire Scottish Youth Parliament Elections 2023. The background to the report is given in section 3, and paragraph 3.1 describes how members of the South Lanarkshire Youth Council and Youth Family and Community Learning staff, in partnership with secondary schools, colleges, universities and local youth groups, organised and delivered council-wide elections to democratically elect 9 South Lanarkshire members of the Scottish Youth Parliament. Appendix 1 of the report details the election process that was undertaken to promote and elect to the 9 positions. Section 4 of the report, and specifically paragraphs 4.1 to 4.10, describe the practical implementation of the Scottish Youth Parliament elections for 2023, and I would ask members to note in particular, as described in paragraph 4.6, that nationally the voting process was delayed due to an issue with the online voting system. This issue is still affecting some local authorities, with some elections expected to conclude as late as March 2024. The issue didn't affect the South Lanarkshire elections, as we use a paper-based voting system. Paragraph 4.7 describes how volunteers from St Andrews and St Bride's High School were supported by staff to conduct the official count that was expertly run under the diligence of South Lanarkshire Council's electoral office, and the whole process was concluded in 3 hours, which included several recounts. Paragraph 4.9 details the successful candidates for each constituency, and they will officially take office at the first sitting at the end of March 24. Paragraph 4.11 acknowledges the dedication, passion and hard work of the outgoing MSYPs, and paragraph 4.12 details some of the initiatives that they have been involved in to progress the youth agenda in South Lanarkshire and promote youth voice. And those activities include involvement in the Let's Connect Young People's Mental Health Conference, involvement in the launch of the South Lanarkshire Youth Strategy 22 to 25, presenting to the education management team, participation in the anti-racism in education reform subgroup, and attendance at the South Lanarkshire Partnership Board Development Session on Climate Change and Nature Loss in October 23. Paragraphs 413 and 414 describe the training and support that will be available to the newly elected MSYPs to support them in their role. Turning then to the recommendations in section 2, the Education Resources Committee is asked to approve the following recommendations. That the commitment and contribution of South Lanarkshire Youth Council to the youth agenda be noted. That the continued contribution and participation in local planning issues be noted. That the success of the outgoing members of the Scottish Youth Parliament be recognised, and that the successful candidates, as highlighted in paragraph 4.9, be welcomed to their positions serving their communities for their 2-year term. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Anne. And thanks very much for the paper. It's very exciting always to see new MSYPs coming forward, and it's really exciting this time that every one of them's brand new to the role. So good luck to all the MSYPs who have previously been in the role, and good luck also to the new ones. I wish our counts only took 3 hours, including recounts. So there's a dream. But well done. The election office is really heavily involved with YFCL, and they all do an absolutely fantastic job. I met one of the new MSYPs coming in last week, and he's fabulous. And I think Gavin and I are looking forward to meeting them all in the next few weeks as well. So it's exciting times ahead for them. I have a number of speakers wanting in this. So can I ask Councillor Clark first, please?
Thank you, Chair. Again, very much like to welcome this report and thank you for it. We're doing a lot to engage with our young people, and I'd very much like to congratulate the incoming MSYPs and of course thank the outgoing ones for their work. There is, of course, more that we need to do to promote, turnout and so on. It's good to see increased projected turnout for these elections just there. And I speak as someone who's actually eligible to vote in these elections. So thank you for everyone for their work on this, and of course the young people themselves. And we have presentations from the Youth Forum on Climate Change, the Climate Change Committee, and I've had similar presentations to other committees. Could we potentially have presentations or have the Youth Council or MSYPs come to the Education Committee? Is of course whatever works best for them, but if that's something they'd like to do, then I think we'd very much welcome that.
Thanks, Ross. It's something that I've asked about in the past. It's coordinating diaries and stuff like that to make sure that, because some of them would need to take time out of school and stuff like that. So, and it's there is various issues round about that. But if we can endeavour to do so, then I'm sure we can. But we have looked into it in the past, and it's just not. They've got so much to do that taking them out of school and stuff like that for this isn't maybe the best use of their time. But if there is an opportunity to do so, they're more than welcome to come along. Because I know at the Climate Change Committee, as you said, at the Climate Change Committee, the young people came along and that was possible. So, yeah, we'll see what we can do with that. Thanks very much. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I think just to say congratulations to everybody who stood and who, the successful ones as well. A big congratulations, and we'll hope that they enjoy their next 2 years. A great deal of work for schools and various staff members as well. So I think we need to thank them for encouraging and showing a continued interest. Although it's saying somewhere that I read it, that there's been a sort of increase in the ballot. If you look at the figures, they're still quite low. And that's a shame, because obviously there's a lot of people then not engaging in this type of activity. So is there any other way that we, apart from sort of bring them in or speaking to them or whatever, but it's the core people, core voters that we really need to get to know. It's always welcome. I've met 2 or 3 in my time and very active and very engaged, but obviously there's people there who are not engaged at all. It's how would we get to them or try and get to them. And again, just for myself, we hear and we've heard right through these papers about people who find it hard to achieve in schools, people who maybe don't come into school as much as they could, people or pupils who, for different reasons, they're not engaging as much as they maybe should. I'm always wary that if you are a good achiever at school or you're good at coming at the school, then the chances are there, and rightly so. I'm not saying that that's not right, rightly so. So they're engaging at all times. It's how do you get under that to try and promote other people to put their name forward or to have the courage or the confidence to put them, and how, to try and get that vote completely up. Thank you.
Thanks. Anne?
Thanks for highlighting those issues, and you're right. What we have is a breakdown too of the rates of engagement for each school. So we can target schools, for example, where we're not getting the engagement that we would expect, and staff do target those schools to make sure that as many young people as are interested can be involved. In relation to engaging young people who are not sitting in a school setting or traditionally engaged in that kind of thing, what the staff do is they make evening visits to youth groups and places like that. So they're quite clear about the fact that their main audience isn't always sitting in a school. So they do identify other opportunities to engage young people who bring other skills and talents to the party, if you like, rather than maybe the academic skills that many would bring. So the staff are quite clear around the fact that a breadth of representation is important, but so is the level of representation. So the work is ongoing. I think it's probably like any democratic process, everybody works to kind of maximise, I think, engagement where they can. So thanks for the question.
Thanks, Anne. Councillor Lydon?
Aye, thanks, Chair. I should say, first of all, I'm not speaking as someone who's eligible to vote in these elections, but thanks for that comment, Councillor Clark. I would like to echo the previous comments about the dedication and the hard work of the outgoing MSYPs and wish those who are newly elected all the best for their term. I know how much hard work goes into organising these elections, as we've heard today, and thanks should definitely go to everyone who's involved in that process. My question was around, and I think Anne partly answered it there as well, there's obviously sort of continuing, there's room for continuous improvement here, and it's something that will hopefully just grow and grow. I noticed that there wasn't a contest in Rutherglen, which was, I presume, was to do with number of candidates coming forward. Yeah. So how are we encouraging more people to stand as candidates? And is this something we could have a conversation with the Scottish Youth Parliament themselves about what works well in other areas to give people that little push and to see if there's any extra support that they can offer, or there's other organisations, I know that some of us will be familiar with them, to encourage people into elected office, like at council level, parliamentarians and so on, like Elector is the first one that springs to mind. Just wondered if there's any sort of scope for developing or looking into whether that would be available for young people, because it's really about just giving people that wee push sometimes. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for that. Appendix 1 details the elections process. So, you'll see, for example, that the elections are open from July. Candidate registration is open from July. And then following that, there is a series of activities that take place to promote the elections. Candidates are required to do a simple module to ensure that they understand what the responsibilities are in relation to that. So, and then there are, it talks about promotional opportunities include presentations to assemblies, classes, break time, lunchtime information stalls, all of that. And all of that is ongoing. But I think you're right. I think to look and try and refresh the approaches is something that we would do, and I can certainly take that back to the team. There is a dedicated team, and they would always be looking for ways to promote to promote the process further and to do it in maybe more creative and innovative ways as well, which would be attractive to young people. So I can happily take that back. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Anne. Elise?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and thanks very much for the report. Mine's just more of comments. I hope it's okay to come in. I just want to, my son stood last for 2 years and he's an outgoing MSYP, and it's a very positive story. My son had lacked a bit of confidence, and through being elected in MSYP, his confidence has risen, as much so that he is now applying to go to the Navy. And he's been doing talks with that, and talks in his Boys Brigade, and encouraging people to vote for MSYP or stand for the MSYP. So I just want to thank everybody involved personally for what they've done for my son and to help with his confidence. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Elise. That's a really nice story, and really it is good to hear the personal stories from people, and we all wish your son the very best in the Navy and going forward. He was a Clydesdale MSYP, so I knew the work that he did, so he was very good, and I'm sure that he'll be excellent in going forward. Can I ask Councillor Allison, please?
Yeah, Chair, thanks. Just to congratulate all of those who have been elected and hope they have a very successful term. A little bit confused. It's maybe been answered by Councillor Loudon, but I see in Appendix 1 that 9 people were elected, yet there is only 7 people, showing 7 people through the election process. And I was just wondering if that was because of the 2 that were... Okay. Sign language has sufficed.
I think 4.9 shows 9, does it not? If you want.
Councillor Loudon did answer the question. During the call for the candidates phase, we only had 2 come forward for Rutherglen. So because there were only 2 seats, those candidates stood uncontested, and so an election wasn't required. So that's where your 2 candidates come from. Thanks for the question.
If only that happened to us as well, then that would be useful. Not that I'm stifling a democratic process, just to get that in record. Bert.
Much, Chair. Thank you. This will be more like a history lesson. 1973, I was actually elected for the first time ever for the original school parents' youth parliament. And my old pal Tommy Gilligan, he used to be a councillor, he encouraged me. And I think encouragement at school and encouragement maybe for some of us councillors get into schools would be good to encourage people. Because I go to a lot of local meetings and community councils, and they're very alike. Young people seem to have an interest, and it's disappointing because they've got so much to offer. And I think we should be looking at ways to go out there and get people, encourage them. And the youth parliament seems an ideal thing, and well done everyone that's there, and I hope to see them as future colleagues one day. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Bert. The future Bert Thompsons we're talking about here.
That mic's still on.
Councillor Faulkner.
Thanks, Chair. Just in page 206, the constituency Uddingston and Bells Hill, is that no breaching 2 councils and areas?
It does. It spans North and South Lanarkshire. That's right. It spans North and South Lanarkshire. That's right.
Can you turn your mic on?
North Lanarkshire then, Education Department, did they participate in?
They would have participated in that, and I can get you
No,
details
okay.
of the involvement if you want. But you're right to point that out. It spans 2 local authority areas.
Fine. Thank you. That's fine.
Thank you very much. If there's no other questions or comments, can I ask the committee to agree to note the report?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 11 is underage use of e-cigarettes and vaping, which is pages 207 to 222. And I'll ask Des to take this, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. The purpose of this report is to provide a progress update since we last reported on this matter in September 2023, and in particular to focus on the steps being taken forward by Education Resources and our partner agencies. The background to this report is highlighted in 3.1, and I think it's fair to say that we acknowledge that the Council considered its motion in May 2023, and that was submitted to the Scottish Government. In paragraph 3.6, we describe some of the steps that are being taken at a national level to restrict the sale of vapes to young people, but it is worth noting that e-cigarettes and vaping were introduced to curb tobacco smoking, so clearly we've got an unintended consequence here. Moving on to paragraph 4, we highlight some of the actions being taken forward by our schools and education establishments in conjunction with Health Protection Scotland and North Lanarkshire, nearly faux pas there, through our NHS colleagues in Lanarkshire, and with our third sector partners like Landed, the young people's charity based in Lanarkshire. At the Education Resources Committee in September 2023, the committee asked officers to report back on what steps Education Resources through our schools and services could take to help inform young people of the risks associated with vaping. So in paragraph 4, we show that the context for doing this is through the health and wellbeing curriculum, supported by the public health campaign. In paragraph 5, we provide more details on the actions being taken, and again you can see some of the national actions that are being taken that we've described there in paragraphs 5.4 through to 5.7. However, like this committee, we may recall that in September we have stressed the importance of following and considering evidence-based research from public health. So in paragraph 5.8, we refer to this, and in Appendix 1, we provide for your information today the outcome of a national study which has influenced public health and indeed the government at a national level. And needless to say, we want to focus on what's young people's views about this. So young people were asked in a national study, which we've got attached to your papers, that how this could be changed. And not unsurprisingly, the most common answer was to make vapes less glamorised and taste like tobacco. We have worked closely with Landed, and NHS Lanarkshire commissioned Landed to consult a young people's survey, and you can see 2,500 responses were made to that survey, which is actually helping to influence decisions at a national level through public health. Landed have also produced a series of posters, and in this paper I have included a link to that so that you can see them for yourselves. Moving on to paragraph 6, we set out what are the actions being undertaken by Education Resources. So I've tried to set out in the table there what will actually happen in the ground level, i.e. what will happen in classrooms through the curriculum, to try and educate young people through the health and wellbeing curriculum there. We also took a horizon scanning approach to say, are there any preventive measures out there that other councils are adopting? So we did engage, for example, with Inverclyde, and they have a mini pilot at the moment looking at probably bringing in sensors. But in speaking to them, it is costly. They did get money from the tobacco grant, and it's too early to say if it's working. There is a wee bit of a step for a hint, and you'll get a story from me, that they are seeing less discarded vapes. That's because the kids have been told that there's sensor in the school, and that comes from the cleaner, but there's not a full evaluation on that. So really, in that sense, we're reaching out to see if there's anything there, but be mindful, financial pressures, and that is certainly coming along from Inverclyde as well, you know, what is affordable, if anything. But one view on that, Chair, would be to make yourselves aware. We are being contacted by business organisations wishing to promote their products and sensors, but they are businesses and they want to provide, you know, there's a real strong charge. Our view, and certainly in education, is in actual fact to work our way through and to continue to educate children through the curriculum what is best for them in health and wellbeing, rather than going down an enforcement type route. But clearly that's our view and opinion. So in paragraph 7, we have set out the summary of our proposals and actions for noting. Because of time, Chair, I won't read them all this morning, but they're all listed on paragraph 7. So, Chair, the committee is asked this morning to approve the following recommendations: that the steps being taken by Education Resources, in partnership with NHS Lanarkshire Public Health and other partners since the last report to committee in September 2023, to raise awareness amongst children and young people of the effects of vaping be noted, that the proposed actions being put forward by the Scottish Government as part of a national UK campaign be noted, and that the proposals as highlighted in paragraph 7 of this report also be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Des. I've got a couple of people wanting to ask some questions. The recommendations are on page 107. Can I ask Elise to come in?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, for that, and thanks very much, Des, for that report. I had the privilege to meet with Des over Teams before, and as I brought the motion coming forward to the full council, which then came to education. I have to say it's been a great privilege to see this come forward, and I want to thank you for all the work that you've done to make this come forward in a positive way for our schools. And I think, yes, to go down the education route is great, and I think we focus on that and we give the schools every help that they would require. And again, Des, I want to just echo, thank you very much for all your support and communication in this. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Elise, and thank you very much for the work that you've done around it and bringing the motion forward which is prioritise the vaping agenda in education resources, which is a massive issue. When we were out in Straven last week, it was actually brought up that one of the big issues in the school is vaping. You can see that just going about your daily lives as well. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to welcome this again and to echo the words of Councillor Frame and yourself there. More of a comment, as Des has already actually answered the question I was going to ask. It was just around the sensors, and it's useful to know about the pilot work that's going on elsewhere. I know it's a bit too early to tell kind of how effective they are, but it's useful the information that was given. And it'll be useful to get this information when it is completed as soon as possible. I know there are lots of concerns around that about false alarms and staff time. These kind of things could potentially be triggered by cleaning products or aerosol sprays. So it'll be useful to look at that specifically going forward when we're assessing the effectiveness of them. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, I'll ask the committee to agree to note the report.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Can we go on to agenda item number 12, which is Celebrating Success, page 223 to 226, and I'll invite Des to do
it. Thank you, Chair. I think it's fair to say this morning it's a privilege and honour to present this report on behalf of South Lanarkshire Education Resources. As you know, I have delivered this report over a good number of years, but it also, I think, reflects the difference that education makes to young people's lives. So, Chair, the purpose of this report is to advise on the range of high-quality work which takes place in our schools and education establishments, and to recognise the achievements and awards attained by our children, young people and staff in our nurseries, schools and services. There is no doubt that the wider achievements of children and young people, as well as the good work undertaken by teachers and staff, is something that the Council, through Education Resources, believes should be recognised and celebrated. The commitment and dedication of staff across the Council to provide the best experiences and outcomes possible for all learners is the main purpose of this report. Celebrating and recognising success is a cornerstone in helping to show the positive difference that education makes to the lives of many children, young people and indeed their families. And so, Chair, this morning we take the opportunity to highlight just a few examples of this excellent work. In paragraph 4.1, we highlight the positive use of social media by our schools and establishments to highlight and promote the really good news about young people and what they're doing in terms of their learning and their achievements. So that's a benefit from social media. We are seeing that through our schools, our nurseries, youth, family, community learning services, using social media to promote good news stories because it's the right thing to do. So in paragraph 4.2, we see the range of achievements here from our schools and the Gold Sports Scotland Award winners, sport, close to my heart. Also close to my heart is reading, and the Scottish Book Trust Reading Schools Initiative shows you the range of schools have achieved gold awards and silver awards. Then not forgetting to remember the Holocaust Memorial event, which many members here attended, which I did also, and the host this year being Straven Academy, and well done to the pupils who attended that and performed on the evening. And again, in terms of Scottish Anti-Bullying Award, the national award achieved by Hamilton Grammar, the first school to achieve the Respect Me Anti-Bullying Award. And then again, a small sample of those schools who, up to this moment in time, have signed the Trauma Sensitive Pledge Award, the Act to Make a Difference, a real difference on the ground, and congratulations to them. So in a kind of summary, Chair, I'm going to just do a wee mini selection from 4.7 to give you one from each of the areas, as I do. So on behalf of the first one in the Hamilton Woodlands Nursery Centre, received a Success Looks Different Awards in recognition of how they celebrate their pupils with additional support needs. In the Cambuslang Rutherglen area, St Bride's Primary Cambuslang are the first school in Scotland to win a Gold Missile Award. Not forgetting our colleagues in Clydesdale, Biggar Primary, and as we spoke about this morning, a digital award which they received, which is excellent. And in East Kilbride, perhaps to select one from Duncanrigg Secondary School, who received a Scottish Credit Qualifications Framework Bronze Award, and you can see the description there from their SCFQF pupil ambassadors. And then I thought this morning, we've heard a lot about equalities in this committee over the number of years, and it was really, really good to see Hamilton Grammar ASN department be the winners in the secondary category for a South Lanarkshire short film competition, the biodiversity of your local area, which in actual fact reflects achievements of young people. And then again, Lanark Grammar and the British Sign Language Pupil Leadership Team were commended for their work to promote in sign language through See Hear Network News. And of course, who can forget about the South Lanarkshire Instrumental Music Service? You see them popping up in your own schools, and you see them at concerts and events in the Holocaust Memorial, and that team do a great job in promoting musical skills. Then, of course, in paragraph 4.9, we recognise the work of our Youth, Family and Community Learning team, and they will host their own awards ceremony on the 24th of March. And just to reassure committee that celebrating success and keeping up to date on education news is continuous, the digital bulletin known as SWAY will be issued on a fortnightly basis to all councillors as a way of sharing with you more regularly information on education news and indeed updates. So finally, Chair, it has been an honour and privilege for me to present this report over the years, and I would then like, for the final time from me, to ask the committee to approve the following recommendation in paragraph 2. That the range of awards and the achievements of children and young people and staff across schools, establishments and services, as highlighted in this report, be noted. Thank you.
Thanks, Des. Don't know what to say. So, as it's become obvious, this is Des's last committee, and first of all, I'd like to congratulate everybody in the Celebrating Success report, but going on from that, I would really like to thank Des for all his work and hard work that he's done over the years. There'll not be a councillor in here that is asked a question and been told, go and see Des, he knows the answer. So in your retirement, you will be greatly missed, very much so. I understand that it's been a long career in local government. It was starting with the region, and going on to other local authorities as well, and joining SLC when it started as a unity authority in 1995. I understand the highlight of your career though has been driving about Donald Dewar in your car, which I thought was very interesting. We need to have a conversation about that. And I wonder what you talked about. But thank you so much, honestly. It's been an absolute privilege, and you've been such a help to me personally and other councillors, and I really, really hope you enjoy a long retirement running about after your little grandson as well, and going on holiday, I hope, as well. So thank you very much for all your hard work. If you must. No, I'm only... Oh. Click it again. That's you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it has been a privilege, and I was going to say something in the sense of that. I don't want to keep you back and watching the clock because you've had enough. But I've had a career in local government which I've enjoyed, and I've enjoyed the political aspect of it as much as anyone. Because if you don't believe in democracy, where are we going to be? And if you don't believe in schools, ask where you're going to be in society. And when I first started, I started very young. I had black hair. So look what that's done. But on a wee period of reflection, I reckon, now don't quote me on this for the exact right, but there's been around 125 education committee meetings, of which most of them I've attended, except when I've been on holiday a couple of times I do that. And it goes way back to 1996. And the chair then was Alan Dick. And then it moved on, and this might not be the right order, but I'm sure it is. Councillor Jean McKeown, Councillor Mary Smith, Councillor Katie Loudon, and then your good self, Councillor Lindsay Hamilton. And there was also deputy chairs, Alec Allison's here, Councillor Faulkner, and various other people who I've come into being with over the years. And I would also like in this committee to acknowledge, the work that we do behind the scenes in the professional associations and our trade unions, the RE representatives, and my wee friends, the parents. Right? They're quite rightly, they don't make the job easy. They're quite rightly to ask the challenge questions. But if you have good fun with them, if you listen and then consider what can be done, then that makes the job good. So I thought I would finish off with 2 stories. Actually, I thought a story this morning and I was going to keep it short, right? But I did start as a young kid in the block, and I was invited along to the Further Education Committee in Strathclyde House. It was, heavens above, right? I hadn't long started. And it was right, son, you're now responsible and you're going to do the FE committee, right? And I came in, and you remember, some of you remember, he was a big, powerful guy in the sense of politics, Ian Davidson, right? So we went through the committee and whatever else, and he did that. And I can't even remember what I said, but I get summoned after the meeting down. And here's a word, and I use to this today, and I still use this in teacher induction, okay? And it was, son, remember, officers recommend, us as politicians and elected members decide. And that was a principle learning. That wasn't meant to be funny or cheeky, but I brought that into the essence of anything that we've been doing so that we understand that we're working and we should be held accountable in the democratic process. And then another wee one was a laugh. I'm trying to think, what could he laugh at now? I could tell you. Remember, I collected a coffin outside the building, and the building lopsided. But this one was an opportunity, and it just shows you I was nervous. Best value auditors were in. They were doing a review of the whole of the council. So I was challenged with some governance approach. Right? I won't name this chief executive, but we decided that they would take a visit. The auditors, accountants, sorry, Ellen, and we'd take them on the bus. This was the chief exec's idea. Take them on a bus and we go around and see some education places. Right? So it gets down. No chief exec arrives. Call comes. Des, you have to take them on your own. I'm going, oh God. So the guy getting the bus says, Des, there's a speaker here. Do you want to say anything? So I said, right, okay, we're going to go on a tour, and I'm going to make it a guided tour. And it gave me the opportunity to actually showcase what South Lanarkshire was about, because we went on the bus, we went to Holland-Bruce Nursery, and the auditors got to see the kiddies getting their lunch, right, and getting to see the healthy eating. They also went up to a few other schools, and we were in the socio-economic area. I'm not telling you what school it was, but it was in Hamilton Central. And then we come back down through Cathkin, and we told them the story about the new builds. So that was it. Comes back in the next day, summoned by the chief exec. What were you doing in that bus? We all come back in and says it's the best visit I've ever had. And the outcome for me was we got a best report. Of course, that was our intention, but we got our testing to not because Des Dixon was in the bus, but because we've invested in the education. And I'm a bit of a junkie about that in terms of that. So that's it. And I've had the pleasure of serving in the JTC. I've not just been sitting in the office. I have travelled around the world through the leadership programme, and that was very beneficial. So my view has been that, as best I can, I've always tried to take forward the council priorities in the best way possible. Sometimes we can't always do things that we say on the tin, but the most important thing for me is don't disparage local government as a career. Encourage young people to come in and they take up a local government career. Too much we're hearing the negativity, the opposite, right? And so that's my wee message. I can't help myself, but local government career, I've enjoyed a career. I've enjoyed working with some tremendous people throughout my career, too many to mention, but you have made the job it is, and I'm sorry I went on too long, but anyway, thank you for that.
We will miss your stories, Des, I'm not going to lie. But Councillor Logan.
Thanks, Chair. I was really just going to comment in the actual paper. But Des has stole everything, all my thunder here, which was But I'm so pleased on the report that we're going out in a high this morning, and I'm so pleased that we're going out in a high, and it is your last committee to us, and obviously you're going to enjoy your retirement. I think South Lanarkshire is such a divergent council, and when I came in at the start of South Lanarkshire, I came from Clydesdale, which was just a district council. We never had education to deal with. In actual fact, one of the very things we thought, hope we managed social work, because we didn't have that, or education. But throughout the years, although I personally have had problems from people and things, it is one of the ones which doesn't come over your desk an awful lot for me. So to me, that's a success, because if you're not getting hundreds of complaints week in and week out, then that is a success. And I'm so pleased about all the different things that was going on within the council. And equally, 2 weeks ago or whenever it was, we had a school come to tell us about their report from the inspectorate with 10 pupils. And yet you could get one somewhere else probably with, in fact, one in our area is really a large school. Law Primary is a large school, Carluke Primary. So you've got the divergence even in the different areas. And I'm pleased that we have such good talent and everything going on in schools. And if you go into our schools, you actually know that they're good, because you get a feeling at the one. We just deal with what's ours to deal with, but if you even just go in, there's a family feel, in my view, to most of our schools, or to all our schools. And I read somewhere once that said that it takes a village to raise a child, and I think it takes South Lanarkshire Council, all the staff, from the cleaners, the teachers, the staff in the offices, the pupils, the mums and dads. It's a whole collective family thing. So that was all I was going to say on this, but I do wish you very, very well in your retirement. I was speaking to Shannon, you'll remember this story, the famous Shannon, and she always says, remember I got my picture taken Brown Owl? I say, I do, Shannon. Tell him I'm asking. I say, I will. So Shannon's still asking for you. So there you are. So thank you very much. But that was all I was going to say, is it's great achievements for all our schools, everything that's here, and it's not just one person or one thing, it's everybody collectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Frame.
Hi, thanks very much, and I want to wish Des all the best on his retirement. I seen as Eileen, I was coming in for the paper, but obviously Des had come in as well. I want to highlight, personally for me, Stephen Academy, the Holocaust event, which was very, very successful, that quite a lot of councillors attended, and the school had put on, and the pupils had put on a fantastic event. I also want to say my experiences from Stephen Academy since I became an elected member, how they all work together, what Eileen was saying, they all work together, the full school, including the parent council, and they all work together for the best of the pupils, and they've welcomed me as a councillor into the school, and what I've learned from them and from their pupils. But I also want to highlight one thing that I think is very good what they're doing, is they are not just, a lot of people get highlighted for their academic and if they're good at school and everything else, but what they're doing is these people that maybe school's not for everybody, so they're inviting people in from different career backgrounds to speak to folk to see how they could go about if they're maybe not school's not for them, and how they start their qualifications. And I've had the privilege to be invited in to see how I started in care and how I've worked through, and to try and help people and to try and encourage people to come into the care sector, which I think is great considering the social work committee. We've always talking about the lack of jobs. So I just want to thank Stephen Academy and everybody else for all the work that they've done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elise. Councillor Loudon.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll keep this brief. Congratulations to all of the schools, first of all, who've been rightly recognised in this report. I know how much Des has always enjoyed presenting this report because it's so important to recognise the hard work and achievements of our school communities, and it's always been a highlight at the end of committee for us as well. Frankly, and please no offences attended to other officers here, it was always a highlight of pre-meets as well when Des talked through this paper. I always felt he had such a great mixture of a sort of overview of everything that's happening in South Lanarkshire and then hyper-local information and stories about what was happening in individual establishments as well. And as the Chair said, I don't think there'll be a single councillor in here who hasn't asked a difficult question of Des and got a great answer in return. My time as convener, we certainly had some interesting times. I don't think I'll forget that, okay, it's happening phone call from Tony McDade at the start of lockdown. Through that whole time and pretty much in any other time of crisis, whether it was minor or major, Des always provides all the information you need. It's to the point, but more importantly, it's reassuring. You know, you can rely on it, and his tone is always very reassuring and calming when you need it. He's always been absolutely on it, and you know that if you've got a reply from Des or he's been working on something for you, you're always going to feel more reassured and happier after you've read it. So just on behalf of all of the SNP group, Des, I'd like to wish you all the very, very best for a long and happy retirement. Thanks for all your help.
David.
Thanks, Chair. Like others, I was coming in to make a comment in the report, but... I
think that's a judgment on my chairing rather than...
Des has decided to overshadow it to his shame. But no, I'll start off in the report, cracking report again, and I always, like others, enjoy this report, and I'll build Des's chain now and again about how he gets this slot to cheer us all up after a long, boring education committee. But no, great stuff. I want to highlight something in this, so the instrumental music services, and I think it's great to see on social media some of the talented young people that we've got in South Lanarkshire. Over Christmas we get regular emails with things happening and seeing musicians strutting their stuff, which was great. And sometimes they don't get the recognition, I think, that service, the musicians that they are producing. So just to pick that out, and not to diminish anything else that's on that report, but I think it was just maybe worthy of comment. And I think I picked up, Des, you were going to say there's going to be more regular bulletins coming out of successes in school, which again will be great, because attending parent councils, you get what's happening locally, but really it's great to see an overview of what's happening throughout the authority. Moving on to Des, he caught us off guard. I hope he's not leaving just because nobody now calls him son at meetings, you know, but I have to say, over the years, and I've been here since the inception of this council, not to the lofty heights of chair education committee, but I've been on I think I've probably been on the education committee more or less all the way through as well. And Des has been a constant. He's been a constant attendant. He's been a constant source of information and good news stories at the end of committees. But I think his passion for young people in education shines through when you speak to him and you hear him at committees. And on a personal level, I just really thank him for the support he's given me when I've needed it over the years, and wish him all the best in your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alec.
Well, I wasn't coming in to speak in the paper, but I'm quite happy to be associated with all the positive remarks. Des, as you said, I was very lucky to be deputy chair of this committee at one time, and the support we got from yourself was truly exceptional. What was also exceptional about it was the way you delivered in a very quiet and unassuming way. It actually led a great deal to the authority that you then spoke with, and I'm quite sure all the elected members ending up taking the decisions that you advised that they should, if that was going back to the original words you had. But hope you do have a very long and enjoyable retirement. I have a grandchild myself now, and they're great because you can hand them back. But all the best.
Thank you very much, Carol.
Thanks, Chair. I feel a wee bit emotional, this being Des's last committee. I just wanted to add a few words of my own on behalf of the officers. It's not often you describe somebody as irreplaceable, but I'm not sure how we could ever try to replace the role that Des has played and also the person he is. He's taught personally me so much. He's only been with me in this role for a few short months, but he really has taught me so much, and I know that that goes for all the directors that have come before me and all the heads of service that he advises. There's a programme that I think that's called Better Call Saul, but I mean that Better Call Des is really a phrase that we mutter at regular intervals, and as Councillor Loudon has said, you know, in particular during that period of the pandemic where Des was practically leading the response and doing so very ably. I'd just like to take this opportunity at committee to formally thank him for his work and for the person he is to us all, but also to extend the invitation to any elected members who want to drop in. We're having a wee tea party at the end of the Cost of the School Day conference on Monday the 25th of March, where we'll get a chance for people to say a few words about Des and to mingle, share stories and have a cup of tea and a cake. So that would be at 3:30 on the 25th of March. So any elected member who is on the Education Committee is warmly invited to attend that event. So on behalf of us all as officers, Des, there'll be a lot more words said as the weeks go on, but from us, thank you as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your comments. I think we've come to the conclusion that Des isn't allowed to retire. Withdraw that, Carol. But thank you very much, everybody, for your kind comments as well. The item 13 is urgent business, which there is none intimated. So I'll ask Pauline to stop the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance.